Tons of you have sent me your finances to analyze, and so I want to share a few with you today. Seeing the actual numbers of how much money other people make and how much they spend is eye-opening, and it's totally taboo in our culture. Think about it. When was the last time you openly shared your finances with a coworker, let alone a stranger? But today I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to show you the salaries, the net worth, and the spending of 3 conscious spending plans that my team selected. Please know that I don't know who these people are. All I see are the numbers on the screen and a few details that my team shares with me. These are my off-the-cuff reactions. So let's get into it with conscious spending plan number 1. Here's the info my team shared about this couple with me. They're both 43 years old. They have 1 kid who's 9 years old, 1 dog, a Yorkie baby. That is TMI. I don't need to know what type of dog it is. And they live in the Bronx in New York. They have $0 in assets. It's fine. Again, if you rent, you don't have typical assets like a house or a car if you live in the Bronx, fine. Investments, $95,000. At age 43, that's a little concerning. Savings are $200. That's a problem already. I'm starting to sweat. Their debt is $25,000. Okay, which is manageable, for a total net worth of $70,000. Before I go on, let me already tell you why I'm getting a little bit nervous. At age 43 years old, which is for many people getting up near, sort of climbing to the peak of their career earnings, this is where compounding can start to really pay off if you invested in your early 20s. Most people have not invested in their early 20s. They start typically getting serious about investing right around the age of 40. But the fact that I see $200 in savings tells me that this couple probably is not being very aggressive with any of their financial goals. But who knows? Let's keep looking. Their income, they make $14,000 a month. That's a very good salary for $174,000, almost $175,000 a year of household income. That's good. And $104,000 of take-home pay per year. Okay, great. Well, that's a great salary, but I'm wondering, why are they not saving any money or investing more? Let's take a look. Oh, there's the answer. They spend 83% of their income on fixed costs, which is way too high. I guarantee this couple feels stressed out about money. I guarantee that they're probably getting in little fights about little things, but the fights are not about the little things. They're about everything rolling up to their 83% fixed costs. Let's take a look. Their rent is, wow, $3,000 or 22%. That's good, especially in New York. Well done. Insurance, $482. Okay. Car payment, $495. I don't know if that's car payment or transportation, but okay, that's a little pricey, but it can be done. Debt payments of $781. What? Okay, so they have some type of credit card debt, maybe student loans, $25,000. If that $25,000 is low interest student loans, that's okay. If that's $25,000 of credit card debt, that is a red alert. Now, I don't know, but that could affect a lot of things. They spend $1,200 a month on groceries. What? Again, is this 2 people? Oh, they have a 9-year-old. Okay. Again, people somehow think I'm like the grocery store Grinch. I'm not, okay? Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, Ramit, you should really do some tips on shopping at the grocery store. I was like, do you know who you're talking to? I'm not the grocery store man, okay? Sitting here comparing pomegranates. Oh, this pear is ripe, everybody. Look, it's perfect. Better get it tonight. Not me. Not what I'm going to tell you how to optimize spending on limes. But I will tell you this. I've looked at a lot of people's finances. Almost nobody tracks how much they spend when they're grocery shopping. So when I look at any couple, just an easy guideline is you could probably shave off $100 off your groceries, no problem. 200, probably. 400, 500, sometimes. $1,200 on groceries every month is a lot of money. Could it be cut a little bit? Yeah, I think so. I can feel very comfortable saying that. Childcare is $160. Wow, that's low. Okay, that's great. Good for you. What? Their pet's $500 a month? Is this why they told me it's a Yorkshire, whatever? What is that? Does that stand for the most expensive dog in the world? Oh God, hold on. One thing I don't need is for the ASPCA and every dog owner in America to come after me telling me, oh my God, this is part of my family. I let the dog lick the food out of my mouth. I don't need all that, okay? Please don't write me any dog owners. In fact, any pet owners, because it's never just a dog. It's a dog, a cat, a lizard, a chinchilla. I don't need it. I will say again, that's a lot of money. $500 a month, which I'm glad that they are actually tracking it. Food, unexpected vet bills, all that stuff. And could a family pay $500 if they're making $175,000? Of course they could. Can they do that and have $781 in debt payments and have $1,200 in groceries? That becomes a lot harder. That's really the point of the CSP. And that's really the point of living your rich life. You spend extravagantly on the things you love. That might be your dog. Fantastic. I'm not going to tell you don't spend money on your dog. The other part of the sentence is you spend extravagantly on the things you love as long as you cut costs mercilessly on the things you don't. And so, when all these grocery store people get mad at me, the fact is there's a limited amount of money here. We got to make choices. So I can see why this couple has 83%. I also note, by the way, that they are not adding miscellaneous, which would be 15% in my opinion, hundreds and hundreds of dollars here. They're definitely spending close to everything they make on their fixed costs. It's not sustainable. If you're 43, you have $200 in savings. That means that if there was a job loss in the family, they could last, like 3 days? That's extremely dangerous. So I'm concerned. Let's look at the investments. Oh, 0. Oh, that makes it easy. All right, savings 2%. By the way, I like how the I like how the ratio of savings is $100 a month on an emergency fund. Total savings is $200. So they've been doing this for 2 months. But they're also saving $88 a month for vacations. Again, if I'm paying $781 a month in debt payments, if I'm paying $500 a month for Yorkie the York, I don't see how you can afford to go on vacations when you're living on a razor's edge. Finally, guilt-free spending at 14%, which I don't believe. I think it's higher. All right, let me tell you my assessment of this. I am concerned because this couple is one step away from financial disaster. And it's hard to imagine that when you make $175,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And it's hard to imagine that when your rent is 22%. That's actually really good, especially living in New York. But what they've done is they've added multiple costs on top of each other. And that money is sucking away money from savings and investing. They are essentially spending every last dollar they make. So it works well. They can take the dog out for a walk. They can eat really good food. They can spend money on guilt-free spending, probably eating out. That's what people in New York love to do. It works great until one day it doesn't work. And that would be a layoff, job loss for medical reasons. Somebody wants to retire. And that's when I get these heartbreaking emails from people who are 64 years old and they say, Ramit, how about helping us older folks who didn't do the right thing earlier on in life? And I wish I could help every single person. I really do. I want to. But when you are much further along in life and you haven't saved and you haven't invested, then you're faced with only a series of pretty grim choices. Choices are typically reducing your vision of the rest of your life. It's not going to be traveling around and gallivanting around. It's going to be, I have a fixed income, pretty much Social Security. What can I do with that? And it's increasingly hard to live on just Social Security. I don't want you to be in that position. So the good news is at 43, you could actually change a lot of things. You have a high income. What I would do if I were you is I would take a complete blank CSP and I would say, what do we want our life to look like? Okay, I would start off by just following the percentages in the CSP. That means I would start with 10% savings and 10% investments, minimum. The reason I'm not suggesting you go 20 or 25% investments is that it's effectively impossible. Nobody's going from investing 0% to overnight investing 25%, even if you need to. It's just too hard. Therefore, I would rather have you say 10%. Let's set a goal. It's ambitious. We can hit it. And then From there, we'll increase it to 11, 12, 13, 15. Fantastic. You're going to have to make some tough choices. Just looking at your numbers right off the bat, I can tell you, you're going to need to get aggressive about paying off that debt as quickly as possible. $781 a month is a lot of money. That money needs to be paid off going towards investments. Groceries, that's really one of your biggest opportunities to cut back. That's going to have to go down. Pet, I'm not sure what to say about that, except that's a lot of money. And if you could find a way in your spending to cut $300-400 a month, that would actually go a long way. I'm looking at subscriptions. That needs to go down. Basically, you're seeing that you need to start making some hard choices now. But if you do it, you still have a very good chance. If you wait even 5 years, those chances go from hard to extraordinarily difficult. And if you go and wait even 10 more years, they're not just difficult, they're actually fairly impossible choices. So I want you to get ahead now. I see possibility. Of course, there's always a possibility of increasing your earnings, but that's not really the point. It's working with the money you've got now. I would love it if you follow back up with me in 6 months, because I think you can make some big changes in just that amount of time. All right, next, conscious spending plan number 2. Here's what I know about this couple. They're in their mid-30s. They have 2 kids in daycare, which costs more than their mortgage. They paid off $100,000 of debt last year. That's credit cards, car loans, and some student loans. They hate debt and they want it gone. And the question they sent us is it better to pay off their debt or to invest? Let's take a look. Assets are $730,000. Wow, that's pretty good. Probably a house. Investments are $114,000. Good. Savings, $20K. Good. Debt, $535,000. Probably the mortgage. Total net worth of $329,000. Again, they're in their mid-30s. All right, let's take a look at their income. Their income is $18,500 a month gross, or $270,000 a year with a bonus. Let's just say $270. Means they're netting $14K or $168. Okay, fine. Let's take a look. What the hell? Their fixed costs are 90%? How come everyone's just spending all their money on their fixed costs? You guys want to save anything? Have you all read a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich? 1 million plus copies sold? It has, never mind. Their rent is 17%. That's outstanding. Daycare, oh my God. Again, do I need to even make a comment about how difficult this country makes parenting? Spending $2,700 a month on daycare, that's a lot. Probably living in a high cost of living area. There's not much they can probably do about that. I'm just gonna leave that there. Car payments, $250, that's reasonable. Debt payments, student loans are $3,400. Let's talk about that. Groceries are $1,000. Okay, fine. The Grocery Grinch is not coming out today. Clothes are $100. Phone subscriptions, $230. No, not anymore. That's goodbye. Miscellaneous, they added their own miscellaneous at $1,285. We need to fix that as well. All right. The Grocery Store Grinch is coming out because we need to make some changes here. At 90%, you can't use a surgical scalpel to go from 90 to 60. You have to take out a big old machete. I don't even know what a machete looks like, but I don't know if you hold it like this or like this. Just take it out and start chopping. Usually people can't do this. Have you ever heard the podcast episodes? They're like at 98%, sometimes 118%. And I'm like, okay, what do y'all want to cut back on? And they're like, well, we have the Netflix, but we have the Netflix Pro. I think we should go to the ad-free. The other one's like, no, I hate ads. I'm like, are you seriously debating a $2 a month change when you're at 118% of fixed costs? That's not going to cut it. That's pretty much what's going on here. But let's look at the rest. Investments, what? Investments are at 1%. Okay, savings are at 1%, and guilt-free spending is at 8%. So basically they're spending all their money on their fixed costs. That's what's happening here. Okay, and their fixed costs, the big ones here, it's not the rent, because that's fairly reasonable. It's daycare, which is big. Not much we can do about that. It's debt payments, $3,400. It's groceries. I'm sorry, but that's gonna have to come down because there's nowhere else for it to, unless you want to cut back on daycare. If you can cut back on daycare, keep the groceries where they are. But I would say 99.999% of parents are like, I can't cut back on daycare. Clothes, okay, you should cut back on that. Make it part of your guilt-free spending. But that $100, it'll make a bit of a difference. Okay, let's talk about the last two, subscriptions and miscellaneous. Subscriptions at $238 just simply doesn't make sense when you're spending 90% on fixed costs. It's too easy of a win. I shouldn't see that here. What I should see is something like $40 a month on subscriptions, which gets you, a Netflix, maybe it gets you a discount gym, and that's it. That's the situation we're in here. It is that dire. So I'm not saying cut back on everything. You should have some type of streaming service, fine. But $238 is more than a lot of millionaires that I see in here. Finally, miscellaneous. I appreciate that this couple put miscellaneous because most of us do spend money that we don't account for. But when you look at this number, which by the way is only 11%, that's an area that they can optimize right away. So guess what? If you have 90% of your income being spent on fixed costs, you need to get really dialed in with the unknown money. There basically needs to be no unknown money being spent. The cost of you having really high fixed costs is that you need to actually be tracking things a lot more carefully than somebody whose fixed costs are at 52%. I'm sorry to say, but that's reality. Now, I want to point out this debt payment thing. They asked a question, should we be investing more and paying off less debt? In order for me to answer that question, I would need to know two things. Number one, how do you feel about debt? I'm not really concerned about that at this point because 90% means feelings are going to be less important than math. Second is, what's the interest rate? Now, if the interest rate is like 8% for debt payments, that's kind of like you should pay off your debt. Why do I say that? Because you can safely assume that you're going to get about 7% returns in the stock market in a low-cost index fund, fully diversified. So if your debt payments are like at 8%, I would pay the higher thing off every day. Same as a credit card, which is going to be 26 or 30%. If your debt payments are like 2%, I would pay the minimum on those debt payments, and I would put a lot more towards saving and investing. That is the crux of the question here. Now, a lot of people are like, well, what if my debt is like 6% or 7%, basically the same as I can get in the market? Then there's no clear-cut answer, but I often like to split it in some way. It could be 50-50. 50% of the money you have goes towards debt, 50% goes towards saving and investing. I'll tell you what I don't like. I never want to see people turning off savings and investing altogether. Again, it's like a factory. You never want to shut that factory off completely. Slow it down if you need to. Make 2 widgets a day instead of 200, but keep the factory moving. Keep those investments going, even if it's 20 or 50 bucks a month. Same with savings. You got to keep the money flowing. In general, 2 things that stand out to me here are the daycare, which hopefully they can model out how long they're going to have to keep paying that. And they need to think very carefully about what they're going to do once daycare ends. So I would be extremely careful about continuing that level of spend because you can't sustain this. You cannot sustain what you've currently got going on. The second thing is your debt payments. Obviously, that just needs to be brought down. So you need to stop paying as much. I hope that your interest rate is low. Contact your lender, see what they can do to help because this is crippling for you at $3,400 a month. And now I'm looking back and I see that your student loans are $135,000. Yeah, I would contact them. It seems like you're overpaying. But I might be wrong. It just depends on the interest rate. What I'm thinking about right now as I look through your numbers is that your savings are at $20,000, which is really good. And I'm wondering, how did you get there if you're currently only saving $100 a month? My guess is that when daycare came along, you had to cut all your savings and put it towards daycare. If so, I actually feel a little better about that because that shows that you understand how a system works. You know that certain times you're gonna have to divert money from here and move it over here. That's a good sign because when daycare ends, you can divert money back to savings, etc. Overall, I think that this couple has some really promising things going on. They have a really strong income. They have a demonstrated record of excellence, which is saving and investing before. That's the best thing of all because the best predictor of our future behavior is our past behavior. And I see some really good past behavior. Might be the case that just they're in a pickle right now. For the next few years, they have really high childcare costs. Okay, if so, that's the case, then you need to figure out what you're gonna do. You're gonna accept a lower amount of savings. You're gonna maybe have to stretch out your debt payments. You're definitely gonna have to cut your guilt-free spending because even at 8%, it's a little tough when you're spending 90%. You just can't be doing 90. So my suggestion, rework your CSP, bring that 90 down. It can be higher than 60 at these times in our life. It could be 65, 68, even 70. but 90 is too high. I would recommend that this couple make a plan for what they are going to do with their bonus money. It says here that they make a bonus. What are they doing with that bonus? Is that bonus just sitting in a checking account and getting invisibly spent? If it were me, I would make a plan. My plan is basically like 75% of unexpected income goes towards investments. Here's the rest of what my plan for unexpected income looks like. I would encourage this couple to do the same thing. All right, I have one conscious spending plan to analyze left, but do me a favor really quick. If you're not subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my new money videos. Now, let's move on to conscious spending plan number 3. Here's what I know about this person. Single mother to a 9-year-old girl. She's a nurse practitioner for just under 3 years at this job. Cash equals security, so she hoards it. That's what my notes say. She would like to be debt-free and she wants to buy a house in a couple of years. Okay, let's take a look. Her assets are $17,000. Her investments are $80,000. Okay. Savings are $23,800 and she's holding $19,000 in her checking account. Okay, already I can tell you scarcity of money, fear of money, makes decisions based on what she sees in her checking account. This is very common for people who don't know a lot about money. They determine all of their financial decisions based on how much they see in their checking account. Whereas when you're savvy with money, you understand that my money in retirement is real money. I need to factor that in. You understand that just because it's in my checking account doesn't mean that it is all for me. It might have already been charged up on a credit card, which is going to be paid off on the 25th of the month. Just looking at a checking account in and of itself is a very simplistic way to look at your money. To be really good at money, you need to understand the multiple buckets you have, multiple savings accounts, checking account, retirement account, non-retirement accounts, and on and on and on. Anyway, savings at $23,800 is pretty good. Debt at $90,000. Okay, probably student loans for a total net worth of $30,000. Fine. Income is $10,800 a month, which is $130K a year gross and $85K a year net. Let me just think. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at the fixed costs at 80%. Already we have a big problem. 80%, no wonder she's worried about money, although I can already tell you that somebody who keeps $19,000 in checking account was fearful of money far before they were charging 80% on fixed costs. Typically, people like this have been fearful of money their entire lives. If I had a chance to speak to her on my podcast, I would be very curious about what happened when she was a kid with money. What about her mom, dad, all that. Rent is about 25%. Fine. No problem there. Actually, less than 28% of gross. I don't mind. Utilities, insurance at 125, car payment at 635. All right. Again, alone, it could be done. But one of the recurring patterns we see in these conscious spending plans is that it's typically not just one extravagant purchase. It's multiple things. It might be student loan. It might, which people don't consider extravagant, but if the number is high, that's a big purchase. It can be expensive groceries. It can be all kinds of things, but usually it's not one thing unless it's a car or a house because those are so big, but it's multiple things. Debt payments at 408. There we go. Exactly what I'm talking about. So car payment of 635, debt payment of 408. That's over $1,000 a month right there. Groceries at 950. Let's see, single mom with a 9-year-old. Definitely some opportunity to cut back a little bit there. Clothes at $25, fine. Phone at $50, subscriptions at $65, and miscellaneous at $741 for 15%. So my quick assessment without even looking at anything else is that I completely understand why she's stressed out about money. If I was spending 80% of my net income on fixed costs, I would be super stressed out as well, because where's all the rest of the money supposed to come from? How are you going to save? How are you going to invest? And when I look at just a couple things that jump out at me, there's the car payment, which is not super high, but it's a little high. Fine. The debt payments at 408. Again, it could be done individually, but when you combine that with the car payments, that's high. Then the groceries at 950. That's 1, 2, 3. End of story. So if there were ways to reduce those, we'd be in a better position. Let's take a look at investments. Investments at 3%. Honestly, better than zero. I like it. The fact that the factory is moving, right? That something is being invested, to me is a huge win. Even $200 a month is fantastic just to get started, because it's much easier to go from 200 to 2,000 than 0 to 200. And to give you an example of what I mean, if you, a person who has not run in 25 years, decides to go from the couch to running a mile a day, that would be really hard. But what if you were already running a mile a day? It would be marginally harder to run 5 miles a day. That's what I mean by always keep the factory running, always keep some money being invested every single month automatically. Savings are at 3%. Okay, could be better, but I don't mind. The factory's running. I like that. It's a little curious that someone who's fearful of money, by the way, is only investing and saving 3% each. It's funny because sometimes we have these invisible scripts in our head, like I'm fearful of money, and you can go one of two ways. You can be like, I'm gonna save 48% of my income, and all I'm gonna do is run Monte Carlo analyses every single day. That's basically 90% of the FIRE community, okay? That's that. Or you can do what's happening here. I'm fearful of money. I'm gonna keep 19,000 out of 23,000 in my checking account, and I'm gonna spend basically all the rest. So just the emotion, the way you feel, does not necessarily determine what you're gonna do with your money. I mean, if you're gonna be fearful of money, I would prefer you be fearful and then save and invest a whole bunch of money, okay? That's my personal opinion. But of course, Ramit Sethi, New York Times bestselling author, would prefer that you also not be fearful of money, okay? Take control of it. Let's look at guilt-free spending at 14%. Can't do it. Can't do it. You can't be spending 80% on fixed costs and then doing 14%. If I saw this person was spending like 5% on guilt-free spending and instead taking, that 9% delta and putting it in investments or savings or even fixed costs, I would have a different conversation. Hey, why are you only spending 5%? But right now it's just overspending. Overall feedback. First of all, single mom, 9-year-old daughter, this is not easy, okay? I get a lot of questions from single parents. They're like, hey, must be nice to be making 2 salaries and $270K and a bonus. Like, that's not my situation. And so I'm very thankful that my team brings me all different kinds of scenarios of folks that I can look at their numbers and also I can understand. Look, if you never grew up learning about compound interest, I don't expect you to have $80,000 saved by the age of 25. That's just not realistic. But what my goal is to get everybody reading from the same page. I want you to be competent about money, okay? That means read my book, you learn how the rule of 72 works, you set up automatic investing. Then we can start talking about where to go next. In terms of this conscious spending plan with a single mom, a 9-year-old daughter, I would say overall, I like that you've got a solid income. That's amazing. I love that you are investing and saving automatically each month. Amazing. We got to get those fixed costs down. We have to get them down. You can have them higher than 60% because you might be in a particularly challenging time. Got those debt payments, etc. But you've got to find a way to reduce the fixed costs. Some opportunities that leap off the page for me, the easiest one is groceries because you could optimize that just by paying attention, cut 100, maybe $150 a month off it. Fine. The harder but more meaningful one would be things like a car payment. That's harder because you probably need a car depending on where you live. And even if you sold your car and bought a cheaper one, that would incur a bunch of transaction costs and maybe you would cut by $150 a month, $250 a month. So that's an opportunity. It's harder, but it could be more meaningful. The hardest, but probably most meaningful would be your rent. If you were able to, for example, move to a different place, but I typically don't recommend that unless the situation is super dire, which in your case it's not. My suggestion here is to really get dialed in on your miscellaneous costs. Right now, you used my default 15% for things you forgot. I'm sorry, but at 80% of fixed costs, you can't be that loose about it. You've actually got to be dialed in. I would estimate you could probably optimize that number and cut it by $500 a month. That's a lot of money. That money could be diverted to savings and investing, which is where I would absolutely love to see it. Let's look at your investments. Investments are where real wealth is created. So it's a little ironic that you tell me you are worried about money, but you're only investing $200 a month. Those two things don't add up. Again, your feelings are real, but your feelings can lead you astray. And that's exactly what's happening here. If you are fearful of money, then you should be saving and investing a lot more. Couple of suggestions. Optimize the money from the fixed costs, redirect it over to investments. If you were investing $400 a month or $600 a month, after 6 months, you would log into your account and be like, oh my God, this is really starting to add up. That's how it works. And then that's not even factoring in compounding. It starts to grow on itself. I would love to see you doing that. Right now, I'd love to see you putting more money into savings. I don't know your age. That would have helped me determine whether you should be saving more or investing more. But in general, $200 a month, I'd like to see that number going up. We got to talk about why you have $19,000 in a checking account. That doesn't work. I want you to be disciplined about where your money goes. So at $19,000 making over 4% interest, you could be making like roughly $850 a year in interest. That's not bad. That's not meaningful in the grand scheme of things, but at least you're earning some interest. More importantly, you are using the correct accounts for the correct things. Like you're a nurse practitioner, right? So if I came in and I was like, hey, use this IV that they use on elephants and put it in that little infant baby's neck, you'd be like, what? Also, where did you get an elephant IV? But you'd be like, we don't use that for this. We use a pediatric thing. Yes, same thing with your checking and savings. Savings is meant for savings, for liquidity. It's meant to be over there and it earns a little bit of interest. Checking is for your near-term, month-to-month expenses. I want you to start separating these out and being disciplined with them. I noticed in the comments that she wants to buy a house, quote, in a couple of years. Candidly, that's going to be unlikely. Right now, you don't have enough saved, nor do you have enough going into savings to be able to afford that. In fact, if I could make a suggestion, it would be do not add on extra expense because you're already over expensed on your fixed costs. Keep that number on your rent where it is. Start to cut back on the rest of your fixed costs. Get that number closer to 60, 65%. Start to fill up your savings. Start to fill up your investments. I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to start feeling better about money. When you start feeling better, you're going to want to feel even better. So you're going to start to work on mastering your money psychology. Maybe you join my money coaching program. Maybe you read my book and use my journal. Maybe you do it with your daughter, 9 years old. Perfect opportunity to get her involved. Say, hey, I need your help. This is how much we have. We've got to cut $200 a month on our groceries. Can you help me figure it out? I need you to help me come grocery shopping. Help me plan this out. Get her involved because you're going through something. She wants to see that challenge and help you achieve it. It's a fantastic way to pass on generational knowledge. Remember, generational wealth is not just writing a big fat check when you're dead. Generational wealth is what my parents gave me. They didn't hand me a check. They taught me how money worked. My dad helped me open up a custodial Roth IRA at age 14. These are the things that I want for you to learn and then for you to bring your daughter with you. Now, one day you may be in a financial position to buy a house. If so, fantastic. Run a buy versus rent calculation. Take the considerable amount you will have amassed in your investment and savings accounts. Then you can make a decision. But for today, I would say defer that dream of buying a house. Focus on getting your money under control. And a few years from now, you can re-look at that goal and decide what you want to do. I'm curious, what were your biggest takeaways from looking at these conscious spending plans? Leave a comment below, and please know that I read every single comment that comes in. By the way, you can download your own copy of the Conscious Spending Plan template from the link in the description below to plug in your own numbers. I hope this video gives you a new perspective on your own finances and helps you on your path to creating a rich life. Now check out this video to watch more.